Last week, we talked about 3 different ways to increase your average order value. This is a great way to increase your overall revenue. And one of the suggestions I made was to implement an order minimum. But how do you decide what that order minimum should even be? Well, that's what today's episode is. I'm going to walk you through the key performance metrics you should be considering, and I'm going to share with you an example formula that you can use to figure this out. Let's get started.
Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show.
Well, welcome to episode 270 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I am your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of MyDigitalFarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers like you get more confident in your marketing and sales strategies so that you can grow a profitable business. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the show. Big shout out to all of my regular listeners, my binge listeners. And if you're new to the show, I'm really glad you're here. Welcome to the community. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. You're going to want to do that. And then go check out some of my back issues. You can scroll through. I've got over 250 of them now. And I'm sure you can find something there that piques your interest. If you're really new to the marketing space, though, and you need kind of a 101 crash course, I recommend that you go listen to the first 10. Or even better, get onto my email list, because when you do, I'm going to send you a weekly email for like 3 months that's going to walk you through the marketing jungle and kind of get you onboarded into what you need to know. And you can do that by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. I get really good reviews for that, so definitely take advantage of that. Today's episode is sponsored by my friends at LocalLine. Switch to LocalLine and grow your farm to new heights this season. LocalLine is the most comprehensive sales software built for farmers and food hubs. Its features include e-commerce, automated inventory management, subscriptions, a website builder, point of sale, and more, helping you increase your sales and streamline your processes. So whether you're a CSA farmer or you sell meat, you run a food hub, or maybe you sell wholesale or offer a herd share, LocalLine has the tools and features that you need to succeed. We're a big fan. Are you looking to switch to a sales software that does it all? Subscriptions start as low as $49 a month with no setup fees or sales percentages. That's huge for me. Plus, if you join LocalLine today, your onboarding manager will migrate your storefront at no cost, so you can be up and running in no time, even in the middle of the season. As a bonus, if you are a podcast listener, LocalLine is also offering a free premium feature for 1 year with your subscription when you use my coupon code MDF2024. So go to mydigitalfarmer.com/LocalLine and then enter the coupon code MDF2024. Make the switch today. And now back to the show. Well, hi there, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful summer and that your 4th of July weekend was fabulous. Today, I am talking about how do you go about figuring out your order minimum for your online store. And last week, if you listened to my podcast episode, the topic of the order minimum came up because the whole topic of that episode was 3 different ways you can raise your average order value when people come to your online store. And one of the suggestions that I made was to create an order minimum. And so I thought it would be fitting for us to spend some time thinking through, well, how do you decide what that order minimum needs to be? What are the financial metrics that I would have to look at to even determine this? And so we're going to do a real quick episode here where I walk through some of those key financial metrics, and then I'm going to share some steps for how to determine your order minimum, okay? So let's just kind of back up and review. Determining that appropriate order minimum for your business is going to involve analyzing some financial metrics in your business to make sure that the threshold both encourages people to spend more, but also maintains profitability for you, right? Those are kind of the two goals. And here are some of the key metrics that you're going to want to consider. So I'm going to quickly list them all off, and then I'm going to go through them in a little more detail. Okay, so there are 6 of them. Number 1 is the average order value. Number 2 is the cost of goods sold. Number 3 is the shipping costs. Number 4 is the cost of acquiring the customer, known as the CAC. Number 5 is your gross profit margin. And number 6 is the break-even point. Okay, so let's briefly go through each of those and discuss what they're all about. Average order value, or AOV. We talked all about that in last week's episode 269, so go back and listen to that if you haven't already. Understanding your current AOV is super important because it's going to help you set a realistic and achievable minimum order value. It's going to make your customers increase their spending. But you don't want it to be discouragingly high. So if you don't even know what your AOV is, this is kind of the first step to go find that out. And then kind of where do you, after we do some of these other metrics, where do you kind of need that to move? When I did some of this work and reviewed my numbers, I was kind of shocked to see how low my AOV was and where it really probably needed to be if I wanted to be more profitable. So please, please, please take a look at this one. This is an easy one to do in your e-commerce platform. Number 2 is the cost of goods sold, also known as COGS. So we want to be analyzing the profit margins, right? So if we look at our cost of goods sold, that includes labor, the time that it takes for you to do the work if you are the labor force. Analyzing that cost of goods sold to ensure that the minimum order value covers those costs and provides you a healthy profit margin, right? So we're not just trying to hit the break-even point, but we want to actually make a little bit extra for profit. So do you know what the COGS are? And I'm going to spend a whole episode just talking about COGS sometime in the near future and kind of give you some different categories of things that should be considered when you build out your COGS. So if I know that it costs a certain amount of money to buy the clamshells for my berries, or this is how many hours it typically takes to harvest the raspberries for the store. And then I kind of, I can pencil out the math and figure out that's the labor cost. And here's the bags that go along with all my store orders. And I divide that out. And here's what it cost me to drive to my pickup locations and actually pay someone to staff that site and pass them out, right? I'm calculating all of that in my COGS. Shipping costs is the third one. So the order minimum should be high enough to absorb those costs, especially if you're doing something like offering free shipping. You want to set that number so that you are recouping the loss and hopefully making a little bit extra. So we want to be making profit. We want to be profitable, right? So that threshold should be set at a little bit higher than kind of your break-even point. Number 4 is the customer acquisition cost. So factor in how much it costs to acquire a customer. Now, this doesn't mean acquire a lead. This means actually turning your lead into a paying customer for the first time. And the minimum order value should be set to ensure that you are recouping those costs and, again, achieving profitability. So one of the things that I also look at to help me with this is I look at how much is a customer spending in 1 year once they turn into a customer. Now, it takes a few months for a customer to turn into that kind of client, but eventually I can see patterns in my data. This is what a typical customer pays me in a year, and that will help me kind of know, all right, I'll compare that to my cost of acquiring a customer. And am I okay with those two numbers? So, for example, I think I talked about this last week. I discovered that it's costing me, as of last year, it cost me $38.60 to turn a lead into a store customer. And in 1 year, the customer value for a new customer or any customer in my store is $156. So, $38 to acquire them. They're going to give me $156 that year. I'm still making a profit, and then hopefully that customer stays with me for a long time, so they'll continue to add value to me. Am I willing to spend $38.60? Now, admittedly, that feels kind of high to me, considering how low $156 is in comparison. So I'm going to be working on trying to lower that cost of acquisition over the next year, and or trying to increase the number of times that a person buys from the store so I can increase that customer value, right? But I am looking at how much does it cost me to acquire that client in comparison to what they bring me in a typical year, and realizing that that person will continue to buy year after year. So that is, possibly still worth it. I hope that made sense. I felt like I was rambling. Okay, number 5, gross profit margin. So we want to make sure that this minimum order value is helping maintain our overall gross profit margin, or it's helping us improve it. Now, you'll get to set this to be whatever you want. I know at the very beginning of the year when we build our budget for our year, we have a percentage that we want to claim as our profit margin. But even within the scope of this little experiment where you're just looking at your online store sales, you can say something like, well, per order, I want my profit to be X amount of dollars. So figure out what that number is, because you're going to end up using that number in the formula that I share with you here in a second to help you determine your order minimum. And then, of course, the last one is the break-even point. You want to know the break-even point for each order, and you want to look at both those fixed and variable costs and make sure, again, that that minimum order value is exceeding that point. Now, this is not something that I was doing before, and as I shared in last week's episode, there were times when people were just ordering like a pint of snap peas, and I was not hitting my break-even point. When I finally looked at the numbers, I'm like, whoa, this has got to stop. I'm bleeding money out here. So I've got to change my policies and raise the order minimum so that I'm at least hitting my break-even point. I almost would argue that, it's not worth doing unless you're making a little bit of extra money. Okay, so those are kind of the key financial metrics you want to look at. Today's podcast is sponsored by Farm Marketing School. This is my monthly membership where farmers can come in and build marketing assets one at a time in special 30-day build projects that I've created for you. There are currently over 14 different projects inside of Farm Marketing School, including your website homepage, building a promo calendar, building a promotional email challenge, testimonial and reviews, how to build a better offer, your email nurture sequence, your lead magnet. There's a sales funnel audit. There's a ton of good stuff in there. And I'm adding new material every couple of months. Plus, you get a monthly Zoom meetup with the whole group in the middle of the month. And we'll be doing some book studies off in the fall. I'm really there just to try and empower you and help you get your marketing assets built. So the way this works is you subscribe from month to month. You can cancel whenever you want. You go in, you take the assessment. There's also a crash course in marketing that you can watch to just learn the lingo and the vocabulary and the framework. And then you get started building your first marketing asset. Every project includes a hour-long tutorial, a resource folder that gives you lots of templates and examples to help make the process of actually building your own version really fast, and also a project planner to help you time it out and make sure you get everything done. If you want to learn more about how to join Farm Marketing School and try it out, you can go to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. This is my new kind of flagship offer, my community that I'm going to really be pouring myself into over the next 6 to 12 months. Really excited about it. So I'd love to interact with you. Join at mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. And now back to the show. Now, here are the steps to actually go about putting all those together to determine your order minimum. And this is what I want you to look at here in the next few days in case you want to just try testing this with your own online store. So here we go. Step number 1 to determine your order minimum is to analyze your current sales data. Now, hopefully you have a tool like Local-Line where that's easy to do. You can run a report and see what does the data do. And set, that when you set that report, set the dates. What are you looking at? Are you looking at the first quarter? Are you looking at last month? Are you just going to look at last week's sales? What do you want to look at? So when I did this work fairly recently, I discovered that customers order an average of 5.8 times per year in the online store. Now, remember, I only have 24 opportunities to buy because I'm not open all year long. And so that represents only 25% of the time are people coming in and buying. And for me, that seems like a huge opportunity to increase that. I mean, if I can get people to even buy 2 more weeks a year, right? Or even 50% of the time, I'm going to make a whole bunch more revenue. So that's like a whole nother episode. But when you go and you actually analyze your current sales data, you can identify the current AOV. You can see what is the customer value in 1 year. What are the costs to acquire the customer? You'll start to be able to compare some of those numbers. I noticed that they were spending about $26.58. And that to me was not my favorite number. I'm like, that can go higher. I noticed that my cost of acquisition was $38.60. So I'm actually losing money on that first transaction, but making it up by the second time they buy. And that the average customer value, the amount they spent in 1 year in the store, was $156. Okay, now some of you guys are rolling your eyes right now. You're like, seriously? And you do like a marketing podcast? Yeah, this was like a little bit eye-opening. Now, if you look at my CSA numbers, my CSA marketing branch, that's the kind of flagship of our business. Those numbers are much healthier. And so when I took a look at this little side hustle here that we're trying to develop and grow, I realized I've got some work to do if I want to make this kind of worth it, if I want to make this actually become a major revenue generator in our business. And this is my own fault because I wasn't staring at the data. So once you actually analyze your current sales data and you see what's there, like, don't shame yourself, just take it as data, but do something with it. Like, don't ignore it. Compare the numbers and do the math and realize, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to continue to stay where I'm at, or I'm going to lose money, or I'm going to break even. I'm not going to get ahead unless I do some shifting. Okay, so once you've analyzed and you've gotten those numbers and you've seen your customer spending patterns, and then number 2 is you're going to calculate the total cost per order. So add up all the costs that are associated with fulfilling on an order. That includes COGS, that includes shipping, that includes packaging, labor. Make sure you account for your time. Give yourself an hourly wage, your time it takes to do all the different things that go along with it. Okay? Then you're going to set a profit target. That's step number 3. What would you like your profit to be? And I typically like this to be a kind of a percentage number. And this should be a desired profit margin per order. This is going to help you establish a baseline for that minimum order value to make sure you are profitable. And then number 4, you're going to evaluate your competitors' pricing. I don't always do this, but I think it's wise to go and research some of your key competitors and just see, well, what are their order minimums? What are their shipping policies? So that you're not completely off your rocker and doing something so different that, a person's going to compare the 2 different businesses and it's going to be hard to choose yours. So you want to set a competitive but profitable threshold. Okay. And then finally, step number 5 is you want to test different thresholds. So you're going to come up with some kind of an order minimum number like I did, and you're going to try it out. You're going to do what's called A/B testing. Okay. So, test A is going to be that first number you think of. You're going to try it out for a week or 2 or 3, and you're just going to see what happens. And then you're going to test option B. You're going to change the number. Maybe it's going to go a little higher. Maybe it's going to go a little lower based on the results of the first one. And you're going to see what happens. And you're going to find that optimal threshold that maximizes your revenue, that minimizes cart abandonment, and ultimately gives you some good profit. Okay. This A/B testing might take a few weeks. It might be more like ABCD testing. And I'm currently in the process of figuring that out. So, I set a certain minimum order value in the first 2 weeks. I'm kind of still evaluating it, and I actually think I need to raise it up higher. But one of the things I am factoring into that decision is the fact that it's still early on in the season. I don't have as much product in the store, don't have as many options that are super popular. And so I don't want to make it too high, because I think if I make it like really high, where it would be maybe more in the mid-season, I might not see as many people purchasing. So that's just me basing it off my data and where I am in the season and what I have in my inventory. Okay, here's the basic formula. It's total cost per order plus desired profit, the formula for how you calculate your order minimum. You're going to take your total costs per order, which would be your COGS, your shipping cost, and your cost of customer acquisition. Okay, those are 3 metrics that you have to know. You're going to take that number and you're going to add your desired profit per order. Okay, that's going to get you to a certain number. That number should be your minimum order value. So let's just say that my average COGS per order is $30. My average shipping cost per order is $10, and my customer acquisition cost per order is $5. Okay. My total cost per order would be $45. Then I'm going to add to that, what is the desired profit per order that I want to make? Let's say I just decide I want to be making at least $10 per order based on an average order value of $50. That's 20%. That's maybe too high, but let's just say that I want to make $10 per order. Well, I would take that $10, I would add it to all the other costs there, that $45, and I'm coming up with a number of $55, right? If I want to have a profit of $10 per order, my order minimum needs to be $55. And so when I look at, well, what is it now? What is my current average order value? If it's lower than $55, like way lower, I need to bring that up to that number. Now, if you decide, well, maybe it doesn't have to be a profit of $10 per order. Maybe it's only a profit of $5 per order, because I know I get this many orders per week and that'll get me to the number I need to get to. Fine. Then you set a lower profit number. Okay. This is how you figure it out. Okay. Let me review that formula one more time. Total cost per order plus desired profit equals minimum order value. You got that? So the total cost per order are like your COGS, your shipping cost, and your customer acquisition cost. And then you add your desired profit per order, and that's going to give you your minimum order value. Okay, so my homework for you is to figure out, what do you want? What do you want your profit per order to be? That's something you probably need to know. What are your average COGS per order, your average shipping cost per order, your average customer acquisition cost? What is your average AOV? What's the average amount a person spends in a transaction? Those are all things you need to know. Okay, and I want you to run this calculation, this formula, total cost per order plus desired profit. What is that number? And I challenge you to go and set that as your order minimum. As an A/B test this week, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but I want you to try it. Okay? Just be like, oh, I'm not going to pay myself. No, you should pay yourself. You should pay yourself. Okay, so let's chat real quick about implementation. You figured out what you want your order minimum to be. Now, how do you get this going? I want to make sure that you make a point to communicate this order minimum clearly to your customers, especially if it's going to be a pretty big shift. make sure that that minimum order value or any associated benefits that come with it, so maybe it's like free shipping if you spend $125, make sure that's really clearly communicated to your clients throughout their shopping journey. So that might mean that you have that running across the top on a banner in your store. It might mean that it's on the top of your website as a banner to entice them to even go to the store. It might be that you have it in the email that your e-commerce platform shoots out every week on your behalf. I know Local Line will do that, and that's just standard in the default language. Maybe it's on the top of your header of your store where you review how to go about placing an order, and you make sure in bold that it says, here's your minimum order. Right? So just make sure your clients know. You might have to send multiple emails. You might have to post it on social media and include it whenever you're promoting your store or your offer that week. Make sure people understand why or that you have an order minimum. And when you shift it, you may need to actually tell your clients for the first time, like why you're doing it. You will notice a higher cart abandonment rate in the early weeks when you do this. Just be prepared for that. But push through and realize that eventually that will stabilize. The reason that cart abandonment rate is so high is because people are going into the store assuming that they can do whatever they want to do like normal. And then all of a sudden they go to checkout and they can't check out because they don't have enough in their cart. And a fair number of them are going to be confused by it. They're not going to understand why. And for the few that actually figure out why, some of them are going to be like, no, it's not worth it because you've just created friction in the buying process. So that's why it's important for you to be communicating this kind of early on and over and over and over again. And eventually that cart abandonment rate will kind of stabilize and come down a little bit. Just so you know, like the average cart abandon rate, like across most industries is around, like, I want to say it's around 60%, 60 to 70%. It's pretty high. So if you have something lower than that, then you're like a rock star. So pat yourself on the back. Okay. The other thing I want you to think about is just, you want to be monitoring and adjusting your order minimum, especially when you're playing in the sandbox and trying to figure out what it should be. That's totally okay. So regularly review the performance of that minimum order threshold. Adjust it as necessary based on customer feedback, based on sales data, based on the season of the year, based on the inventory you have available, based on, I don't know, special offer you might want to run where you remove the order minimum for a certain amount of weeks and just see what happens, right? Play around with it and don't be afraid to do a lot of that A/B testing. All right, well, that's my homework for you is I want you to try figuring out what your order minimum should be. And then I want you to go set it. I want you to set it and try this for like 4 weeks. Do an A/B test thing where the first 2 weeks it's A and the second 2 weeks of the month it's B. You change it and see what you learn. See what you learn about that. Okay? Let me know what you think of this episode. That's all I got today. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. Go into a Facebook group, text somebody, go into your listserv, tell people about it because it's good stuff. And I would love it if you would go onto Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating or a review. Always trying to get that higher. So that's another way you can help out the show. If you know somebody who would be a great guest on the show, or if you have this really cool thing that you tried in marketing and you want to quickly share that tip with me, please reach out to me. I'd love to have you on the show as a guest. You can go to mydigitalfarmers@gmail.com and send me an email, and we'll see if it's... What else? Oh yeah, today's show notes can be found at mydigitalfarmer.com/270. Don't forget you can get onto my email list if you want to get more farmmarket@gmail.com and send me an email, and we'll see if it's a match. Otherwise, know that I'm on Instagram stories at mydigitalfarmer. I'd love to connect with you there. And I will see you next week for another episode. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great week, and I believe in you. Bye-bye.